Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Baker Street West. So lovely to see everybody out, especially on this absolutely dreary day we've been having. More like week. At any
Not
rate,
untypical for London, though.
very typical for London, yes, puts you right in the mood. So there are some unfamiliar faces here, so I'm going to go through the whole spiel. For those of you who have been here before, I'm sorry. For those of you at home, you can figure out your own exits. Firstly, in case of a ghastly conflagration, by which I mean fire, you have 3 exits. You can go down the stairs, which many of you came up, and that will put you down in the bookshop, and you can go out the front doors and find yourself on Main Street. Or you can go down the hallway, and that will put you to a big red door that you can go out, and that will put you on California Street, and you can go up the hill or down the hill as you need. Finally, if you are very brave, you can go down this very dark, dank little alley, and you can go down a treacherous set of stairs, and that will put you also on Main Street. However, I really don't recommend that way, because not only will those of us who are more familiar with this place be racing that way, but Hugh Boone might trip you up too. Many of you have already discovered the WC. Do we know what that is for those of you who have not? Excellent. As I mentioned before, it's right down that little step there, in the door, marked WC. It is authentic Victorian plumbing, which means a pull chain, and therefore we do request finesse, not force. Many of you have also discovered the victuals in the pub. For those of you at home, you're responsible for your own little nibbles. I can't help you with those. For those of you not aware, we do stream this on Facebook as well, so you may or may, you probably aren't in the photo, but you know, just so you know. And then afterwards, these will be available at Baker Street West, is our Facebook page, in case for some reason you want to revisit this event. Today, because we are in January of 2023, all of Mr. Sherlock Holmes's adventures have now entered the public domain. And as a consequence, I thought it might be fun if we read one of those adventures. And so today I'm going to present to you the adventure of Shoscombe Old Place. Sherlock Holmes had been bending for a long time over a low-powered microscope. Now he straightened himself up and looked round at me in triumph. "It is glue, Watson," said he. "Unquestionably it is glue. Have a look at these scattered objects in the field." I stooped to the eyepiece and focused for my vision. "Those hairs are threads from a tweed coat. The irregular grey masses are dust. There are epithelial scales on the left. The brown blobs in the center are undoubtedly glue." "Well," I said, laughing, "I am prepared to take your word for it. Does anything depend upon it?" It is a very fine demonstration," he answered. "In the St. Pancras case, you may remember that a cap was found beside the dead policeman. The accursed man denies that it is his, but he is a picture frame maker who habitually handles glue." "Is it one of your cases?" No. My friend Merivale of the Yard has asked me to look into the case. Since I ran down that corner by the zinc and copper filings in the seam of his cuff, they have begun to realize the importance of the microscope." He looked impatiently at his watch. "I had a new client calling, but he is overdue. By the way, Watson, you know something of racing." "I ought to. I pay for it with about half my wound pension." Then I'll make you my handy guide to the turf. What about Sir Robert Norberton? Does the name recall anything?" "Well, I should say so. He lives at Shoscombe Old Place, and I know it well, for my summer quarters were down there once. Norberton nearly came within your province once." "How was that?" It was when he was horsewhipped Sam Brewer, the well-known Curzon Street moneylender, on Newmarket Heath. He nearly killed the man." "Ah, he sounds interesting. Does he often indulge in that way?" "Well, he has the name of being a dangerous man, He is about the most daredevil rider in England, second in the Grand National a few years back. He is one of those men who have overshot their true generation. He should have been a buck in the days of the Regency, a boxer, athlete, a plunger on the turf, and lover of fair ladies, and by all accounts so far down Queer Street that he may never find his way back again. Capital, Watson. A thumbnail sketch. I seem to know the man. Now, can you give me some idea of Shoscombe Old Place? Only that it is in the centre of Shoscombe Park, and that famous Shoscombe stud and the training quarters are to be found there. And the head trainer, said Holmes, is John Mason. You need not look surprised at my knowledge, Watson, for this letter from him, which I am unfolding. But let us have some more about Shoscombe. I seem to have struck a rich vein. There are the Shoscombe Spaniels, said I. You hear of them at every dog show. The most exclusive breed in England. They are the special pride of the lady of Shoscombe Old Place. Sir Robert Norton's wife, I presume. Sir Robert is never married, and just as well, I think, considering his prospects. He lives with his widowed sister, a Lady Beatrice Folder. You mean that she lives with him? No. The place belonged to her late husband, Sir James. Norberton has no claim on it at all. It is only a life interest and reverts to her husband's brother. Meantime, she draws the rents every year. And Brother Robert, I suppose, spends said rents. That is about the size of it. He is a devil of a fellow and must lead her a most uneasy life. Yet I have heard that she is devoted to him. But what is amiss at Shoscombe? That is just what I want to know. And here, I expect, is the man who can tell us all. The door had opened, and the page had shown in a tall, clean-shaven man with the firm, austere expression which is only seen upon those who have to control horses or boys. Mr. John Mason had many of both under his sway, and he looked equal to the task. He bowed with a cold self-possession and seated himself upon the chair to which Holmes waved him. You had my note, Mr. Holmes? Yes, but it explains nothing. It was too delicate a thing for me to put in details on paper, and too complicated. It was only face-to-face that I could do it. Well, we are at your disposal. First of all, Mr. Holmes, I think that my employer, Sir Robert, has gone mad. Holmes raised his eyebrows. This is Baker Street, not Harley Street, said he. But why do you say so? Well, sir, when a man does one queer thing, or two queer things, there may be his meaning to it, but when everything he does is queer, then you begin to wonder. I believe Shoscombe Prince and the Derby have turned his brain. Is that the colt you are running? The best in England, Mr. Holmes. I should know if anyone does. Now, I'll be as plain with you, for I know you are a gentleman of honour, and that it won't go beyond this room. Sir Robert has got to win this Derby. He's up to his neck, and it's his last chance. Everything could raise or borrow on this. He could raise or borrow his own horse, and find odds too. You can get 40s now, but it was near 100 when he first started backing him. But how is that if the horse is so good? The public don't know how good he is. Sir Robert has been too clever for the touts. He has the prince's half-brother out for spins. You can't tell them apart. But there are 2 lengths in a furlong between them when it comes to a gallop. He thinks of nothing but that horse and the race. His whole life is on it. He's old enough and Jews till then. If the prince fails him, he is done. It seems a rather desperate gamble. But where does the madness come in? Well, first of all, you have only to look at him. I don't believe he sleeps at night. He is down the stables at all hours. His eyes are wild, but he has been too much for his nerves. And then there is his conduct to Lady Beatrice. Ah, what is that? They have always been the best of friends. They had the same taste, the 2 of them, and she loved the horses as much as he did. Every day at the same hour, she would drive down to see him, and above all, she loved the prince. He would prick up his ears when he heard the wheels on the gravel, and he would trot out each morning to the carriage to get his lump of sugar. But that's all over now. Why? Well, she seems to have lost all interest in the horses. For weeks now, she has driven past the stables with never so much as a good morning. You think there has been a quarrel? and a bit of savage, spiteful quarrel at that. Why else would he give away your pet spaniel that she loved as if he were a child? He gave it a few days ago to old Barnes, what keeps the Green Dragon, 3 miles off, the Crendal. That certainly did seem strange. Of course, with her weak heart and dropsy, one couldn't expect that she would get about with him, but he spent 2 hours every evening in her room. He might well do what he could, for she had been rare good friend to him. But that's all over too. He never goes near her, and she takes it to heart. She is brooding and sulky and drinking, Mr. Holmes, drinking like a fish.
Did she drink before this estrangement?
Well, she took a glass, but now it's as often a whole bottle of an evening. So Stevens, the butler, told me. It's all changed, Mr. Holmes, and there is something damned rotten about it. But then, what is the master doing down at the old church crypt at night? And who is the man that meets him there? Holmes rubbed his hands.
Go on, Mr. Mason. You get more and more interesting.
It was the butler who saw him go, 12 o'clock at night, and raining hard. So next night I was up at the house, and sure enough, master was off again. Stevens and I went after him, but it was jumpy work, for it would have been a bad job if he had seen us. He's a terrible man with his fists if he gets started, and no respecter of persons. So we were shy of getting too near, but we marked him down all right. It was the haunted crypt that he was making for, and there was a man waiting for him there.
What is this haunted crypt?
Well, sir, there is an old ruined chapel in the park. It is so old nobody could fix it to state, and under it there's a crypt which has a bad name among us. It's a dark, damp, lonely place by day, but there are few in that country that would have the nerve to go near it at night. But master's not afraid. He never feared anything in his life. That's wasted. But what is he doing there at night time?
Wait a bit, said Holmes. You say there is another man there. It must be one of your own stablemen, or someone from the house. Surely you have only to spot who it is and question him.
It's no one I'll know.
How can you say that?
Because I have seen him, Mr. Holmes. It was on that second night. Sir Robert turned in past us, me and Stevens, quaking in the bushes like 2 bunny rabbits. Well, there was a bit of moon that night, but we could hear the other moving about behind. We were not afraid of him, so we up when Sir Robert was gone and pretended we were just having a walk like in the moonlight, and so we came right up on him, as casual and innocent as you please. "Hello, mate, who might you be?" says I. I guess he had not heard us coming, so he looked over his shoulder with a face as if he had seen the devil coming out of hell. He let out a yell, and away he went as hard as he could lick it in the darkness. He could run, I'll give him that. In a minute he was out of sight and hearing, and who he was, or what he was, we never found.
But you saw him clearly in the moonlight.
Yes, I could swear to his yellow face. A mean dog, I should say. What could he have in common with Sir Robert? Holmes sat for some time, lost in thought.
Who keeps Lady Beatrice Falder company? He said at last.
There is a maid, Carrie Evans. She has been with her this 5 years.
And is, no doubt, devoted.
Mr. Mason shuffled uncomfortably. She's devoted enough, he answered at last. But to whom I won't say.
Ah, said Holmes.
I can't tell tales out of school.
I quite understand, Mr. Mason. Now, of course, the situation is clear enough. From Dr. Watson's description of Sir Robert, I can realize that no woman is safe from him. Don't you think the quarrel between brother and sister may lie there?
Well, the scandal has been pretty clear for a long time.
But she may not have seen it before. Let us suppose that she has suddenly found it out. She wants to get rid of the woman. Her brother will not permit it. The invalid, with her weak heart and inability to get about, has no means of enforcing her will. The hated maid is still tied to her. The lady refuses to speak, sulks, takes to drink. Sir Robert, in his anger, takes her pet spaniel away from her. Does not all this hang together?
Well, it might do, so far as it goes.
Exactly, as far as it goes. How would all that bear upon the visits by night to the old crypt? We can't fit that into our plot.
No, sir, and there's something more that I can't fit in. Why should Sir Robert want to dig up a dead body? Holmes sat up abruptly. We only found it out yesterday, after I'd written to you. Yesterday, Sir Robert had gone to London, so Stevens and I went down to the crypt. It was all in order, sir, except that in one corner was a bit of a human body. You informed the police, I suppose? Our visitor smiled grimly. Well, sir, I would think it hardly interests them. It was just a head and a few bones of a mummy. It might have been 1,000 years old, but it wasn't there before, I'll swear, and so will Stevens. It's been stowed away in the corner and covered with a board, but that corner has been empty before. What did you do with it? Well, we just left it there. That was wise. You say Sir Robert was away yesterday. Has he returned? We expect him today. When did Sir Robert give away his sister's dog? It was a week ago today. A creature was howling outside the old well house, and Sir Robert was in one of his tantrums that morning. He caught it up, and I thought he would have killed it. Then he gave it to Sandy Bain, the jockey, and told him to take the dog to old Barnes at the Green Dragon, for he never wished to see it again. Holmes sat for some time in silent thought. He had lit the oldest and foulest of his pipes. I am not clear yet what you want me to do in this matter, Mr. Mason, he said at last. Can you make it more definite? Perhaps this will make it more definite, Mr. Holmes, said our visitor. He took a paper from his pocket and, unwrapping it carefully, he exposed a charred fragment of bone. Holmes examined it with interest. Where did you get it? There is a central eating furnace in the cellar in Lady Beatrice's room. It's been off for some time, but Sir Robert complained of cold and had it on again. Harvey runs it. He's one of my lads. This very morning he came to me with this, which he found raking out with cinders. He didn't like the look of it. Nor do I, said Holmes. What do you make of it, Watson? It was burned to a cinder, but there could be no question as to its anatomical significance. It's the upper condyle of a human femur, said I. Exactly. Holmes had become very serious. When does the lad tend to the furnace? He makes it up every evening and then leaves it. Then anyone could visit it during the night. Yes, sir. Can you enter it from the outside? There is one door from outside. There's another which leads up the stair to the passage, in which Lady Beatrice's room is situated. These are deep waters, Mr. Mason, deep and rather dirty. You say that Sir Robert was not at home last night. No, sir. Then whoever was burning bones, it was not he. That's true, sir. What is the name of that inn you spoke of? The Green Dragon. Is there good fishing in that part of Berkshire? The honest trainer showed very clearly upon his face that he was convinced that yet another lunatic had come into his harassed life. Well, sir, I've heard there are trout in the mill stream and pike in the old lake. That's good enough. Watson and I are famous fishermen, are we not, Watson? You may address us in future at the Green Dragon. We should reach it tonight, and I need not say that we don't want to see you, Mr. Mason, but a note will reach us, and no doubt I could find you if I want you. When you have gone a little farther into the matter, I will let you have a considered opinion. At which point I think we might consider an intermission. Let's give ourselves about 10 minutes, and we will reconvene for the second half.
Something tells me you shouldn't get giving a woman under spell.
was trying to do something with the interpretations that are being presented here. It said, Enola Holmes. That is not in the name, because that's somebody using the characters, but with a different take. And of course, Enola Holmes herself never appears in any of the original ones, so she is her own, and therefore not we've been following it closely, and I have a high school friend who happens to be a lawyer who's like, you've seen this, right? You've seen this, right?
Yeah. Where are you guys from?
Yes.
Santa Rosa area?
I'm certainly outside of it.
I have a question. I brought my check for Holmes now.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. I can be absolutely certain that Miss
Okay,
Hudson
thank you,
agrees.
because I didn't want to take it home.
It's kind of like that seems to be what happened. Like the same thing that just kind of came across there. I mean, oh yeah, what a work it is.
Ten-year member, how about that? Charter member.
Excellent.
Me too.
Not me. I think I'm going on maybe 5 years at this point.
I had been going to mail it, but then when this came up, I thought I'll just bring it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'd say anybody bring it to them.
How much is first class postage now? It's gone up. Yeah, it's somewhere in the 60s,
Really?
I think. It's pushing it.
I'm gonna ask Google right now. That's a good
Oh, okay.
That's a good idea.
question. How much is first class postage?
And then, of course, in the back of your reality, you already have it.
I volunteer here at Baker Street West, so
But it's kind of a rush.
this is the group I'm a part of. No, it's just been my name. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I certainly enjoy getting it.
Maybe you do make it. Now you're locked in.
Yeah, you're right, 66.
Is it 60? Yeah. That's what I thought I heard.
It's just me.
That still is cheap. Shoot, you're sending something from here to Florida. That still is pretty cheap. If you're sending
When
a
you
letter.
consider,
Yeah, sending something from here to Florida or
Yeah,
to the
right.
East Coast.
the Pony Express was faster though.
At the expense of all those 12-year-old boys.
Oh, really? Yes. Yes.
You better quit putting on old stamps on these when we're out there.
Well, if they say forever,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
that's true.
yeah. And otherwise, you just, if they just a denomination, just add up to 60. Where do we get? Here's your own stamps. I never go.
He's right behind you, right? I'm just putting more stamp on so they know.
Oh,
So I wonder if somebody's paying extra postage when they receive it.
His girlfriend is
That's
sitting
funny.
there, she's like, we got any place for the phone?
most of the stamps sold in recent years say forever.
That's crazy.
All of those. Where's Sherlock Holmes? Increases.
And now my wife and the other lady were gone. I thought they were there.
Is it your son?
This is my wife. Yeah, so we're there.
Who's missing?
Because brunette and sicker with red.
Kitty cat.
Sitting next to her.
I wonder if he's still around or if he
And you guys are just friends, you're all friends.
passed on, because he was always around. I haven't seen him this year.
Been here an awful long time.
I was just looking at that little thing over there, it looks like it'd be perfect for a cat.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe yours would like to move in here.
He's too possessive.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's friendly to people, but he's,
Oh,
you know. Like the neighbors, when they walk their dog, he can pet him once, and then that's it.
Okay.
I'm the only one that can
Yeah.
do all that, because he's gotten used to me. And reprimanded when he does the open mouth, like, oh, I'm gonna give you a love bite. And I'm like,
No,
oh no.
that's what I don't like about cats.
So I've almost cured him of it. I mean, I got him a little excited petting him last night, and he opened his mouth, but he looked at me and he remembered me.
Yeah,
And he closed his mouth. He's like, nope, nope, she will.
not the thing to do.
She will snatch me up like a kitten and throw me out. Just wondering.
Never found him. Never found him.
He has respect for the mother cat.
He probably did get his
I'm amazed he's come this far. 2 years, almost 2 years. No, it's good.
He's a grown man.
Yeah, I guess coming up.
If he's lost, it's by choice.
Yeah, I guess it has been 2 years. Gosh, time sure flies. He was so skittish and everything. Now I can grab things or make noises and
He
work
doesn't
on
mind.
things. He just, because he knows it's me. But if anything else makes a noise, he's like, on alert. You know, but if I'm rummaging around doing things, he's not jumping. I guess there's that trust in him.
Yeah, that's good.
He trusts that I'm not gonna attack him. Except there's a Scott said he thinks he's ready to start to go to the pound and look for dog, start looking for his. I mean, he's looked a couple of times, but he hasn't really pursued it. You know, I saw a couple of dogs that looked like Lucky online and then didn't pursue them.
Yeah.
George said, I'm going with you because I'm ready to dog. And I said, George is gonna get a dog? He goes, yeah, he likes dogs, but he hates those cats just like that. I said, yeah, but those cats were there first and they're gonna be all dominant now on that dog. I didn't tell him that. I'm thinking that.
Dog, especially since they're cat.
Unless he gets a bigger dog.
Unless they just
Well, it's funny because when I saw somebody, they were trying to press the button, so the dial, they tried to press the number.
Then there were 2 male cats, that's crazy. They basically took me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had a party. She's still on. This is the, I think the reason we're just so
That's where data comes in handy.
Bring me back over through or something.
very nice.
But they're nice, yeah. And have, word 1600 Elmwood 8.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Emerson.
Forgot about that. And when it came up with the Princess Push Button Thumbs, that was a big thing.
I didn't have to have those, the little ones that were like that big, and all the different dials in the hand.
And in the garage. They do it this way, I mean, the cat that inside the landline, I don't have a landline anymore. 2 years ago.
He's a flip phone working.
Yeah.
Hooked it up to it.
Oh my God, nice stuff. He's a real Sherlock Holmes. Totally. God.
We're almost there, I promise.
Thank you so much.
All right, almost. Welcome back. I hope we've all refreshed our tea. Thus, it was on a bright May evening that Holmes and I found ourselves alone in a first-class carriage and bound for the little halt-on-demand station of Shoscombe. The rag above us was covered with a formidable litter of rods and reels and baskets. On reaching our destination, a short drive took us to an old-fashioned tavern, where a sporting host, Joshua Barnes, entered eagerly into our plans for the extirpation of the fish of the neighborhood. What about the whole lake and the chance of pike? Said Holmes. The face of the innkeeper clouded. That won't do, sir. You might have a chance to find yourself in the lake before you were through. How's that, then? It's Sir Robert, sir. He's terrible jealous of touts. If you two strangers were as near his training quarters as he'd be after you, as sure as fate. I ain't taking no chances, Sir Robert ain't. I have heard that he has a horse entered for the Derby. Oh yes, and a good colt too. He carries all our money for the race, and all Sir Robert's into the bargain. By the way, he looked at us with thoughtful eyes. I suppose you ain't on the turf yourselves? No indeed, just two weary Londoners who badly need some good Berkshire air. Well, you are in the right place for that. There's a deal of it lying about, but mind what I have told you about Sir Robert. He's the sort that strikes first and speaks afterwards. Keep clear of the park. Surely, Mr. Barnes, we certainly shall. And by the way, there was a most beautiful spaniel that was whining in the hall. I should say it was. That was a real Shoscombe breed. I ain't better in England. I am a dog fancier myself, said Holmes. Now, if it is a fair question, how would a prize dog like that cost? More than I could pay, sir. It was Sir Robert himself who gave me this one. That's why I have to keep it on the lead. It would be off to the hole in a jiffy if I gave it its head. We are getting some cards in our hands, Watson, said Holmes when the landlord had left us. It's not an easy one to play, but we may see our way in a day or two. And by the way, Sir Robert is still in London, I hear. We might, perhaps, enter the sacred domain tonight without fear of bodily assault.
There are 1 or 2 points on which I should like reassurance. Have you any theory, Holmes? Only this, Watson, that something happened a week or so ago which has cut deep into the life of the Shoscombe household. What is that something? We can only guess it from its effects. They seem to be of a curiously mixed character, but they should surely help us. It is only the colorless, uneventful case which is hopeless. Let us consider our data. The brother no longer visits the beloved invalid sister. He gives away her favorite dog. Her dog, Watson. Does that suggest nothing to you? Nothing but the brother's spite. Well, it might be so. Or, well, there is an alternative. Now, to continue our review of the situation from the time of that quarrel, if there is a quarrel, began. The lady keeps her room, alters her habits, is not seen save when she drives out with her maid, refuses to stop at the stables to greet her favorite horse, and apparently takes to drink. That covers the case, does it not? Save for the business in the crypt, that is another line of thought. There are 2, and I beg you will not tangle them. Line A, which concerns Lady Beatrice, has a vaguely sinister flavor, has it not? I can make nothing of it. Well now, let us take up line B, which concerns Sir Robert. He is mad keen upon winning the Derby. He is in the hands of the Jews, and may at any moment be sold up and his racing stables seized by his creditors. He is a daring and a desperate man. He derives his income from his sister. His sister's maid is his willing tool. So far, we seem to be on fairly safe grounds, do we not? But the crypt. Ah, yes, the crypt. Let us suppose, Watson, it is merely a scandalous supposition, a hypothesis put forward for argument's sake, that Sir Robert has done away with his sister. My dear Holmes, that is out of the question. Very possibly, Watson. Sir Robert is a man of an honorable stock, but you do occasionally find a carrion crow among the eagles. Let us for a moment argue that this supposition. He could not fly the country until he had realized his fortune, and that fortune could only be realized by bringing off this coup with Shoscombe Prince. Therefore, he has still to stand his ground. To do this, he would have to dispose of the body of his victim, and he would also have to find a substitute who would impersonate her. With the maid as his confidant, that would not be impossible. The woman's body might be conveyed to the crypt, which is a place so seldom visited, and it might be secretly destroyed at night in the furnace, leaving behind it such evidence as we have already seen. What say you to that, Watson? Well, it is possible, if you grant the original monstrous supposition. I think that there is a small experiment which we may try tomorrow, Watson, in order to throw some light on the matter. Meanwhile, if we mean to keep our characters, I suggest that we have our host in here for a glass of his own wine, and hold some high converse upon eels and dace, which seems to be the straight road to his affections. We may chance to come upon some useful local gossip in the process. In the morning, Holmes discovered that we had come without our spoon bait for Jack, which absolved us from fishing for the day. At 11 o'clock we started on a walk, and he obtained leave to take the black spaniel with us. "This is the place," said he, as we came to 2 high park gates with heraldic griffins towering above them. "About midday, Mr. Barnes informs me, the old lady takes a drive, and the carriage must slow down while the gates are open. When it comes through, and before it gathers speed, I want you, Watson, to stop the coachman with some question. Never mind me, I shall stand behind this holly bush and see what I can see." It was not a long vigil. Within a quarter of an hour, we saw the big, open yellow barouche coming down the long avenue, with 2 splendid, high-stepping, gay carriage horses in the shafts. Holmes crouched behind his bush with the dog. I stood unconcernedly, swinging a cane in the roadway. A keeper ran out, and the gates swung open. The carriage had slowed to a walk, and I was able to get a good look at the occupants. A highly colored young woman with flaxen hair and impudent eyes sat on the left.
At her right was an elderly person with a rounded back and a huddle of shawls about her face and shoulders which proclaimed the invalid. When the horses reached the high road, I held up my hand with an authoritative gesture, and the coachman pulled up. I inquired if Sir Robert was at Shoscombe Old Place. At the same time, Holmes stepped out and released the spaniel. With a joyous cry, it dashed forward to the carriage and sprang upon the step. Then, in a moment, its eager greeting changed to furious rage, and it snapped at the black skirt above it. "Drive on!" shrieked a harsh voice. The coachman lashed the horses, and we were left standing in the roadway. "Well, Watson, that's done it," said Holmes as he fastened the lead to the neck of the excited spaniel. "He thought it was his mistress, and he found it was a stranger. Dogs don't make mistakes." "But that was the voice of a man," I cried. "Exactly. We have one more card to our hand, Watson, but it needs very careful planning all the same." My companion seemed to have no further plans for the day, and we did actually use our fishing tackle in the mill stream, with the result that we had a dish of trout for our supper. It was only after the meal that Holmes showed signs of renewed activity. Once more, we found ourselves upon the same road as in the morning, which led us on to the park gates. A tall, dark figure was waiting us there, who proved to be our London acquaintance, Mr. John Mason, the trainer. "Good evening, gentlemen," he said. "I got your note, Mr. Holmes. Sir Robert is not returned yet, but I hear he is expected tonight." "How far is the crypt from the house?" asked Holmes. "A good quarter of a mile. Then I think we can disregard him altogether." "I can't afford to do that, Mr. Holmes. The moment he arrives, he will want to see me and get the latest news off Shoscombe Prince." "I see. In that case, we must work without you, Mr. Mason. You can show us the crypt, and then leave us." It was pitch dark and without moon, but Mason led us over the grasslands until a dark mass loomed up in front of us, which proved to be the ancient chapel. We entered the broken gap which was once the porch, and our guide, stumbling among the heaps of loose masonry, picked his way to the corner of the building, where a steep stair led down into the crypt. Striking a match, he illuminated the melancholy place, dismal and evil-smelling, with ancient crumbling walls of rough-hewn stone, and piles of coffins, some of lead and some of stone, extending upon one side, right up to the arched and groined roof, which lost itself in shadows above our heads. Holmes had lit his lantern, which shot a tiny tunnel of vivid yellow light upon the mournful scene. Its rays were reflected back from the coffin plates, many of them adorned with the griffin and coronet of this old family, which carried its honors even to the gates of death. "You spoke of some bones, Mr. Mason. Could you show them before you go?" "They are in this corner here." The trainer strode across and stood in silent surprise as our light was turned upon the place. "They're gone," said he. "So I expected," said Holmes, chuckling. "I fancy the ashes of them might even now be found in that oven which has already consumed a part." "But why in the world would anyone want to burn the bones of a man who has been dead 1,000 years?" asked John Mason. "That is what we are here to find out," said Holmes. "It may mean a long search, and we need not detain you. I fancy we shall get our solution before morning." When John Mason had left us, Holmes set to work making a very careful examination of the graves, ranging from a very ancient one, which appeared to be Saxon, in the centre, through a long line of Norman Hugos and Odos, until he reached Sir William and Sir Dennis Falder of the 18th century. It was an hour more before Holmes came to a leaden coffin standing on end before the entrance to the vault. I heard his little cry of satisfaction, and was aware from his hurried but purposeful movements that he had reached a goal. With his lens he was eagerly examining the edges of the heavy lid. Then he drew from his pocket a short jemmy, a box opener, which he thrust into a chink, levering back on the whole front, which seemed to be secured by only a couple of clamps. There was a rending, tearing sound as it gave way, but it had hardly hinged back and partly revealed the contents before we had an unforeseen interruption. Someone was walking in the chapel above. It was the firm, rapid step of one who came with a definite purpose and knew well the ground upon which he walked. A light streamed down the stairs, and an instant later the man who bore it was framed in the Gothic archway. He was a terrible figure, huge in stature and fierce in manner. A large stable lantern, which he held in front of him, shone upward upon a strong, heavily mustached face and angry eyes, which glared round him in every recess of the vault, finally fixing themselves with a dead stare upon my companion and myself. "Who the devil are you?" he thundered, "and what are you doing upon my property?" Then, as Holmes returned no answer, he took a couple of steps forward and raised a heavy stick which he carried. "Do you hear me? Who are you? What are you doing here?" His cudgel quivered in the air. But instead of shrinking, Holmes advanced to meet him. "I have the same question to ask you, Sir Robert," he said in his sternest tone. "Who is this, and what is it doing here?" He turned and tore open the coffin lid behind him. In the glare of the lantern, I saw a body swathed in a sheet from head to foot, with dreadful witch-like features, all nose and chin, protruding at one end, the dim, glazed eyes staring from a discolored and crumbling face. The baronet staggered back with a cry and supported himself against a stone sarcophagus. "How come you to know this?" he cried, and then, with some return of his truculent manner, "What business is it of yours?" "My name is Sherlock Holmes," said my companion. Possibly it is familiar to you. In any case, my business is that of every other good citizen, to uphold the law. It seems to me that you have much to answer for." Sir Robert glared for a moment, but Holmes's quiet voice and cool, assured manner had their effect. "'Fore God, Mr. Holmes, it's all right," said he. "Appearances are against me. I'll admit it, but I could act no otherwise." "I should be happy to think so, but I fear your explanations must be before the police." Sir Robert shrugged his broad shoulders. "Well, if it must be, it must. Come up to the house and you can judge for yourself how the matter stands." A quarter of an hour later, we found ourselves in what I judged, from the lines of polished barrels behind glass covers, to be the gun-room of the old house. It was comfortably furnished, and here Sir Robert left us for a few moments. When he returned, he had two companions with him. The one, the florid young woman whom we had seen in the carriage, the other, a small rat-faced man with a disagreeably furtive manner. The two wore an appearance of utter bewilderment, which showed that the baronet had not yet had time to explain to them the turn the events had taken. "There," said Sir Robert with a wave of his hand, "are Mr. and Mrs. Norlet. Mrs. Norlet, under her maiden name Evans, has for some years been my sister's confidential maid. I have brought them here because I feel that my best course is to explain the true position to you, and they are the two people upon earth who can substantiate what I say." "Is this necessary, Sir Robert? Have you thought what you are doing?" cried the woman. "As to me, I entirely disclaim all responsibility," said her husband. Sir Robert gave him a glance of contempt. "I will take responsibility," said he. "And now, Mr. Holmes, listen to a plain statement of facts. You are clearly gone pretty deeply into my affairs, or I should not have found you where I did. Therefore, you know already, in all probability, that I am running a dark horse for the Derby, and that everything depends upon my success. If I win, all is easy. If I lose, well, I dare not think of that." "I understand the position," said Holmes. "I am dependent upon my sister, Lady Beatrice, for everything, but it is well known that her interest in the estate is for her own life only. For myself, I am deeply in the hands of the Jews. I have always known that if my sister were to die, my creditors would be to my estate like a flock of vultures. Everything would be seized, my stables, my horses, everything. Well, Mr. Holmes, my sister did die just a week ago." "And you told no one?" "What could I do?
Absolute ruin faced me. If I could stave things off for 3 weeks, all would be well. Her maid's husband, this man here, is an actor. It came into my head, that he could carry on for a short period, personate my sister. It was but a case of appearing daily in the carriage, and for no one need enter her room save the maid. It was not difficult to arrange. My sister died of the dropsy which had long afflicted her. That is for the coroner to decide. Her doctor would certify that 4 months her symptoms have threatened such an end. Well, what did you do? The body could not remain there. On the first night, Norlet and I carried it out to the old well house, which is now never used. We were followed, however, by her pet spaniel, which yapped continually at the door, so I felt some safer place was needed. I got rid of the spaniel, and we carried the body to the crypt of the church. There was no indignity or irreverence, Mr. Holmes. I do not feel that I have wronged the dead. Your conduct to me seems inexcusable, Sir Robert. The baronet shook his head impatiently. It is easy to preach, said he. Perhaps you would have felt differently if you had been in my position. One cannot see all one's hopes and all one's plans shattered at the last moment and make no effort to save them. It seemed to me that it would be no unworthy resting place if we put her for the time in one of the coffins of her husband's ancestors, lying in what is still consecrated ground. We opened such a coffin, removed the contents, and placed her as you have seen her. As to the old relics which we took out, we could not leave them on the floor of the crypt. Norlet and I removed them, and as he descended at night and buried them in the central furnace. There is my story, Mr. Holmes, though how you forced my hand so that I have to tell it is more than I can say. Holmes sat for some time, lost in thought. There is one flaw in your narrative, Sir Robert, he said at last. Your bets on the race, and therefore your hopes for the future, would hold good even if your creditors seized your estate. The horse would be part of the estate. Now, what do they care for my bets? As likely as not, the rest, they would not run him at all. My chief creditor is, unhappily, my most bitter enemy, a rascally fellow, Sam Brewer, whom I had was once compelled to horsewhip on Newmarket Heath. Do you suppose he would try to save me? Well, Sir Robert, said Holmes, rising, this matter must, of course, be referred to the police. It was my duty to bring the facts to light, and there I must leave it. As to the morality or decency of your conduct, it is not for me to express an opinion. It is nearly midnight, Watson, and I think we may make our way back to our humble abode. It is generally known now that this singular episode ended upon a happier note than Sir Robert's actions deserved. Shoscombe Prince did win the Derby, the sporting owner did net £80,000 in bets, and the creditors did hold their hand until the race was over, when they were paid in full, and enough was left to re-establish Sir Robert in fair position in life. Both police and coroner took a lenient view of the transaction, and beyond a mild censure for the delay in registering the lady's decease, the lucky owner got away scatheless from this strange incident in the career which has now outlived its shadows and promises to end in an honorable old age.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, and thank you again, all of you, for coming out. Before I let you go off on your merry ways, there is one thing I do like to mention, and that is that Baker Street West here is a non-profit organization. Ergo, any tips or gratuities you care to bestow upon us, well, they keep us in cookies and tea, but also they help us to keep the lights on and do all sorts of other things here. Also, well, with gentlemen lodgers such as these, Mrs. Hudson does need all the help she can get. I'd like to thank you again very much for coming out today. Thank you for tuning in online, and I hope to see all of you next month or in the coming months when we do more of these every third Sunday. Thank you again.